Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, increase profits, to ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and this week's episode features Michelle Poli, or as you may know her as on Instagram, Paint by Mish. We get into some very real talk about what it's like getting started with painting windows, including how to pitch yourself when you're brand spanking new, what supplies to use, how to price, just the whole bit. Michelle was inspired by window painter master Scott Campbell, because aren't we all? And remember last year I replayed a episode from Scott Campbell. And so if you would like to listen to his episode, we'll include a link here. But Michelle is paving her own way. We all have people who are inspired by, but it's so cool to see what artists do beyond that. She has her own style and her own way of doing things, including using an airbrush. I don't have any experience using an airbrush, but I plan to. I think it looks so good. The blending, the speed, so I had a lot of logistical questions ready for Michelle, and she happily answered them and so much more. So listen to this episode to hear all of her tips and tricks for window painting for not just the holiday season, but year round, because we are coming up on one of the biggest window painting seasons of the year. So now is the time to start practicing on your own windows and go pitch yourself. And I think this episode is going to inspire you to do so. All right, Michelle, could you give us a background story about how you have come into the arts, how you're making a living painting windows and all the things, and how did it get started?
Such a long story. No, I've been an artist my whole life, from a kid drawing and doing the usual stuff. I pursued a career in court reporting. I had a couple of family tragedies and realized that it wasn't what I wanted to be pursuing. I wanted to be happy, short amount of time here, whatnot. So I left that and started with face painting, actually. I started face painting, and then that moved on to learning how to do airbrush. And then I think I did some henna in there, probably lots of other odds and end things, trial and error. And then it eventually went to window painting. And window painting is kind of like where I settled on. Although I still do face painting and I still do airbrush, but window painting is probably the majority of what I do now.
Great. Okay. And you do a certain airbrush technique, which is what drew me to you. And so tell us about that. How did that come to you? Have you always used an airbrush, or who showed you how to use that?
I think I started combining what I did with learned how to use an airbrush, learned how to disassemble it, learned how to clean it, learned how to take it apart, how to spray, went through all the trial and error with that. Ended up with paint all over the walls from learning how to airbrush and just making a mess. And then took that and just started adding it to windows. So I didn't always do it on windows. I would just hand paint everything. You had Scott Campbell on here a very long time ago, and Scott Campbell, I owe everything to Scott. So if anybody knows anything about window painting or has tried to pursue it or had an interest in it, they probably know who Scott is. And at the time that I got into window painting, Scott was just really starting to do tutorials and put all his stuff out there. So I pretty much paint the way Scott does and use the similar materials and whatnot. But then over the years, just started adding and incorporating airbrush on top of what I was already doing. And it just added so much. It added, I don't know, it just made everything more interesting and more in depth than hand painting with a brush. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot faster. Yeah, or no?
It's really just what I add at the end. So I wouldn't say it's faster. There are some people that airbrush on windows and they only airbrush on windows. They don't hand paint anything. I mean, it's still hand painted with an airbrush, but some people just use airbrush. Some people hand paint, and then somebody like me, I do both. So I wouldn't say it's faster though. No, I don't think so. Not the way. I think it's longer. I think it's adding more on top at the end, but it adds it just brings it to life. If that makes sense.
Yeah. For anybody who hasn't checked out your work yet, just to give a visual, you have characters and objects, and then you do a white outline and then a black outline, or is it a black and then a white outline? So it really just makes it pop.
The white outline. I paint everything, and then I start to add in shadows and highlights with the airbrush on top of what I already painted. And then I do my white outline, which just, I don't know, I talk with my hands. I just see my hands right now. I'm how do I put this into words? It just adds an extra oomph, and then the black outline just ties everything in at the very end. So
yeah, makes it pop.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are you getting customers nowadays versus how did you get customers in the beginning?
And for window painting in the very beginning, I would paint, like my storm door at my house, let's say I would start practicing there. And then I would go somewhere and offer to do a small painting or something like that. I did start at a preschool who I still paint for today, about 8, 9 years later. And I think I was changing the windows like every month. I was going there and changing it. So the kids loved it. The parents loved it. They still do. Somebody just left a comment on my social media yesterday. It was a mom talking about how much the kids love seeing it. They look forward to the seasonal changes. And then they look for my name around town, which was like really, really nice to hear. I started with that and then just eventually expanded. People see it and, they want it. It's like, window painting is like your own personal billboard. So, I get a lot of business from that, from people seeing it, from other businesses seeing it on businesses I've done and they want it on theirs. And then obviously the land of social media, like that plays a big role in all small businesses in this day and age. I hate social media, but it's also, it's a tool and it's good. It's not like back in the day. It's easy to find people. It's easy to promote yourself. So mostly like that, just word of mouth and people seeing it and then social media.
Okay. So would you be out there painting and people would come up to you and say, hey, I want my windows painted too? Or
yeah, I get that too. Yeah. I get people that stop in their cars from 3 lanes over and they want to talk to me. And I'm like, no, like I'm painting. No, like here's my card. We can talk later, but yeah, people come up all the time. You do murals outside. You know what it's like.
yeah, I do. yeah. It kind of almost depends on the mood sometimes that I'm in. Sometimes I'm like, hi. It depends on the deadline that I have. If I'm rushing or if I'm not, I'm just like, okay, enjoy the day. It's nice weather. Sure, I'll talk to people. And if I'm like, no, I got to get done by 5 o'clock, don't talk to me. It just depends.
Yeah, you just said something about the weather. Like when it's freezing outside and I'm out there in the middle of the winter, I'm like, I don't want to take the face mask off. I don't want to take the hood off. I don't want to talk to anybody, But
so when you're painting windows, that's a common question that I get. And that's really one of the reasons I stopped painting windows after like mid-November because it's freaking cold. I live in Missouri and it's not the coldest place, not the warmest either, but it can get cold, especially when I was out there painting one time and it was kind of like sprinkling a little bit, not enough to make the paint run, but it was sprinkling and it was just that cold, wet feeling. And it was like, okay, is this $250 worth what I'm getting paid to do this? I was like, I don't know. Tell us about your painting in the extreme weather's conditions and what's the coldest you would paint in? How does the paint adhere to the windows? All that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people don't realize is like just nobody monitors the weather more than me. And it's like painting in extreme cold, like so you're saying, okay, so I don't live where it's the coldest, I don't live where it's the warmest, whatever. But if the temperature says one thing, but you're painting in front of a storefront that has absolutely no sun on it, and it's an extremely windy day, that's a combination for frostbite on your fingers. I don't care what you have, and I can't wear a glove. Like I can't wear a glove on my painting hand. I've tried. I need to feel my paintbrush. I need to hold it and actually physically feel it to get the right paint stroke. I need to be able to push on the nozzle and the airbrush to get paint to come out. I need to feel what I'm doing. So I've tried gloves. I think I wear a glove on my non-painting hand, and the other one I think I wear a fingerless glove. So like my hands are completely exposed in the winter. Listen, it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. This is what I chose to do. But I'm in my 30s. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it now. Like, do I want to be outside freezing for the rest of my life? No, absolutely not. It's also just as bad in the summer. It's super hot. If you're in front of a window that has a tremendous amount of sun for the entire day. It's on your back. It's reflecting onto the window, bouncing off into your face. You're getting it from everywhere. So it's brutal, but I don't know, when you love what you do, you muster through it. But yeah, when it's hot out, the sun, it dries quickly, right? The sun is on it, it's going to dry. If there's the slightest bit of humidity in the air and you're working on a small job and you don't have the room to bounce from window to window and you just, like when I do the doors, if I'm doing just a stationary door, I'm stuck on that door, and so if it's humid and it's not drying, it's a problem. And those layers, when you put those layers in, it has to dry. Each layer has to dry. Otherwise, when you put that last layer on, if the layers underneath didn't dry, it's not a good recipe. But the cold dries fast, though. I'll tell you that it does. If it's windy, it dries in the cold. It does. Lighter layers, less paint, thinner layers. I don't know how to say that the right way, but
yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thin light layers in the cold. Okay. Because I was cautioned by my local paint store. They're like, don't paint below if it's freezing, it won't adhere.
Yeah. When I first went to my paint store, they were like, "You can't put this on glass." That's what they were like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "I know what I'm doing." I'm like, "Trust me, like it works. It works. This is what I do." They thought I was crazy, but then now they're used to it. But yeah, there's a sign in the paint store that says, "Don't leave paint outside in the car. It's gonna freeze." So the
Mhm.
lowest I'll go is like, I don't want to say this. I go like in the low 30s, right around freezing temperatures. But like I said, if it's windy and I'm in the shade, it feels so much lower than that. I've done some really cold jobs that I wasn't happy doing, and I'll just leave it at that. I was not happy. I had to stretch it over quite a few days because I could only do a couple of hours each day. But it was for a client I loved. Yeah, they took over like a fourth location. They absolutely needed something on the windows, and I just did it because some people I just really love working for, and I'll do anything.
Yep.
I'm sure you can relate to that too.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of paint do you use? You use latex? Do you use indoor or outdoor latex? I've used both, but I'd love to hear your. What do you think?
Yeah, I learned from Scott. So I use interior house paint, eggshell finish, and the airbrush paint that I use is Createx. I haven't really messed around with any other brands. I don't want to say I swear by them, but they're what I use. They're what I've been using. I use Iwata airbrush guns. I don't know. I've tried other guns, and Iwata just seems to work for me. But when the guns stop working, or it's a combination of like the paint being backed up, or like getting how do I say this? Like if you refill a paint bottle, instead of like when you use a new paint bottle and you're putting paint in the bottle, everything is clean in the bottle, right? But if you just keep refilling that bottle and refilling that bottle, you're gonna get all these little pieces over time. It's probably not the best idea because that stuff doesn't go through the airbrush gun, very fluidly. And eventually, I'm like, I need to toss the bottle out, or I need to just get rid of this gun. I sometimes don't have the patience to clean the guns. So I'm like, I just want to open up a new gun. They are expensive. There's definitely cheaper guns that you can use.
How much are they?
They're over $100 each. And I have like, I'm working with like maybe 10 guns at a time. And then I'm like popping, I use the quick connects and the bottle feed. So I'm popping them in. So I'm like pulling the color out, putting another one in sometimes. But I don't like to do that only if I have to. I like to have like a gun per color for the colors that I use when I am painting.
Okay, so wow, so I have zero experience with this. So I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions on it because I don't know anything about the spray gun.
I'm not an airbrush pro though. I'm not a pro.
You kind of are. I've
not.
seen your stuff.
Like, better airbrush artists out there than me. I know a little bit.
I don't know about that. So, okay, so you have different guns. So you put the paint in the gun, you attach the gun on the hose to the air compressor, right? You have an air compressor?
Yes.
Okay. And then so you use the paint in the gun, and then say you don't need white anymore, you're going to switch to black. Can you just set down the gun with the paint in it just like that?
So if I have, white and black, I don't interchange those. So like those are two colors that I actually never change to different colors. Like those have their own designated guns, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like certain colors, like definitely those are it's funny that you said that. Those are the two colors I definitely never touch. But like other colors, like if I'm on a job and I'm working with 10 guns and like two of them start to not work and I'm freezing my rear end off and I don't feel like dealing with this and taking them apart and whatnot, I'll take those two colors and I'll start interchanging them on another gun. So I'll be switching between like pink and another one. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But okay. So say you have your white gun and your black gun right and left.
Mm-hmm.
And so you use white and then you use black. Say you're not going to use the black gun for a while. Can you just sit it down and it's fine for the next hour? Like paint doesn't like dry and coop up in that? Or do you wash it out real quick or what?
No, it stays. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. I leave the bottles are in my gun. So air is not going in them, if that makes sense. So,
okay.
but I could put another one in here if I needed to. This is an old one that's not working. And then I have a quick connector that goes on here and I pop the hose in here. When I'm done with this, I'll pop this one off and pop a different one back on the same hose. Some people use multiple hoses. I don't like that. I don't want to wrestle hoses.
Yeah. And then when you're done with that, do you just store it just like that with the container in the gun? Or do you take the container off and put the lid on and then wash the gun out every time?
Oh my God, no. No, I do not. No.
Okay. And they're fine.
They stay just like this. They stay like each gun I like to designate to a color and leave it just like this. Occasionally I have to mix up the guns and the colors. I don't even like to do that though. But no, they stay like this and they just sit in the kit. But when I have to do airbrush maintenance, I do a lot of airbrush maintenance before I do an airbrush party. because I need 100%. I'm on a time frame, and I need to make sure that my guns are flowing within that time frame. I'm on a quota. I have a certain amount of things I have to get done, so I need to make sure every gun is working. So I'll do a bunch of maintenance and clean out every gun and check the bottles and the tubes in here and whatnot before a party. Yeah.
Okay. Wait, I want to go to your airbrush party. What do you do there?
Okay. So I do t-shirts, hats, and drawstring backpacks. We do a lot of like birthday parties, communions, whatnot, 80s parties, whatever. And yeah, they just come up, they pick the design they want, do their name, spray it. It's ready at the end of the party. They get airbrush care instructions. But I always have backup guns at those parties. I absolutely have to. I have to have a brand new gun with me, a couple of them, because I don't have time to play around with paint and unclogging guns. And yeah, there's no
Okay.
time for that.
So what is the gun you use and what is the paint you use? One more
Okay.
time. Sorry. I'm going to write it down.
I use Iwatas.
Spell that.
Iwata. You're going to make me look. Iwata Eclipses.
Iwata Eclipse gun.
Yeah. And then I use Createx paint, but some people like swear by certain brands or whatever. That's what I use. I just haven't tried or really switched over to anything else. It works for me right now. So
Createx, is that with a K or a C?
Createx with a C. Createx. I'm looking at the bottles.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I've been wanting to get into this for a while.
Okay.
So I might just Amazon this and get it sent and see how it goes.
What are you looking to do? You're looking to add it to windows or shirts or murals or
murals.
I mean, you can airbrush on anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I want a mural. So Createx, is that okay for exterior paint? Like, would it last a long time outside, or is that more of an interior one?
I don't know. I'll tell you that when I use fluorescent colors on the windows, if I do a job that stays in direct sunlight for the entire summer, it's going to fade. They fade. That's like any neon fluorescent paint, you know? But
yeah.
Other than that, they hold up really good.
Okay.
Like when I do the white outline on the windows, there's no base behind that. And that stays up. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do some research. I'll figure it out. So whenever you get the paint in, does it come in that tube bottle or do you put it in the tube bottle to attach to the gun?
I mean, they come in all different sizes. No, I put them in those bottles. I buy the little bottles that go to the airbrush guns and I keep refilling them.
Okay. So that the bottles on the airbrush gun will come with the gun. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a newbie. So
okay. I'm not professional. Everybody's learning at a different pace.
Stop. You would never know about your stuff. I think I found you from a video that has a ton of views that you've done. I can't remember. It was last year. And I was following you I was like, oh, that is a really cool character. And you're just doing it so seamlessly. And you do the videos that you do them really well. Do you set your phone up on a tripod? Do you have other people video for you? Like, how do you do your videos? They're very good.
So mostly from an iPhone, that's how it's always been. I do have a tripod, and then my daughter does come to certain jobs with me. Like we have this like unwritten rule that when I do one of the bagel stores, she always comes with me, and it's like this running joke, and we just have a good time there. So like on that particular job, she'll take a lot of video. I did just start messing with an Insta360 camera, so I've been putting that up at jobs too and getting different shots But, like anything else, and you're adding cameras and turning them on and off and whatever, it takes away from what you're doing. So it makes the jobs longer, it makes the day longer. Then I go home and I have all of this footage, which is nice, but it's like now I have to sit there and I have to rewatch the whole day again, figure out what do I want to do with this? How much of this do I want to use? It's cool. It's nice to have that additional camera now and get those shots, but I wrestle with it. I love it. And I'm also like, I want to go back to the simplicity of just using my phone and having a tripod and getting certain shots and just, that's it. I don't record everything. I turn the cameras on and off, but
for sure.
It's a whole orchestrated thing from start to finish. So it's a lot that people don't see too,
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of just, instead of being able to get lost in the painting and just have fun with it, and you have to take your messy hands and do something with your phone and your camera. And I just have so much footage on my phone right now of a project I did last week. We did several murals, and it's just sitting there. I'm like, okay, I need to edit this. And there's probably 10 videos. Yeah, there's probably 10 videos worth of it.
It's like you don't even want to go back to it. Like go through all of it again.
Yeah, I'm like on to the next thing already.
Yeah. Well, that's me. Yeah. I'm posting now things from 2 months ago. I'm like, because I just didn't want to look at it all summer. I'm like, I just wanted to be outside. I don't want to be, with the phone and doing this. But, it comes with the territory.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay. You have any crazy stories, funny lessons learned, things that have happened on the job that you could tell our listeners who are getting into window art that maybe to avoid this upcoming holiday season or
I can give
things
tips
that,
about going out for the holiday season. Like
yeah,
I'll tell you when I got started, I went door to door. I would build up my little portfolio, let's say, whatever I painted in the beginning, Or like if I did one job, I remember I did this Christmas job in Brooklyn. And I took that, and at the time, looking back, it was like, oh, it was the best job I did. I look at it now and I'm like, I hate it. You know what I mean? Years later. But I took that job, I put it into photos on an iPad. And I just brought it back I live in Staten Island, New York. And so I brought it back with me, the photos, and I just started going door to door. And I didn't care. I walked up and down the street right before Christmas time, maybe before Thanksgiving. It was before Thanksgiving. And I just went in and I asked to speak to somebody. Hi, I'm a local artist. This is what I do. This is my work, and it's nice to anybody who's new doing this. Like if you feel timid or shy doing it, when you have something in your hand for the person to look at, they're not looking at you. You don't have to make eye contact. You can talk and sell yourself. And I'm swiping on the iPad, they're looking at that. So that was nice in the beginning. And I did. I got some clients that way. And I work with a lot of people over and over again. Some people even from that time in my journey. I still work with these people. So you build a relationship. But yeah, starting out, that's the best time to do it. It's like right before Christmas season, because everybody wants it then. It's not, I have people I work with throughout the year, but everybody wants it during that season. That's the best time to get into this, the best way to start. I don't know. I'm sure I have crazy stories, but I can't think of anything right now.
no, yeah, you're good. Well, if anything pops up, let me know. But yeah, I just love how you're echoing because that's what we teach inside of the academy of like helping artists get started is, take your portfolio, go around, you're going to get 20 no's, but you're going to get one yes, and then you can paint for
Yeah.
them multiple times. And it's just so, I love that you're echoing exactly what we do, but also adding more to it of, you can take your iPad and scroll there and they're not looking at you, they're looking at the iPad. I love that bit of information. Yeah. How long was it? So from now until whenever you first took your first portfolio around town and wanted to get started, how long ago was that?
Maybe about 2017, something like that. I started windows 2016, something like that. I was painting windows. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was literally counting on my fingers. I was like 2017, 2018. I was like still like 70.
It's like almost a decade. It's getting there. It's like reaching 10 years. I'm also like in the thick of this now, and I've been doing this for so long that I'm like, all right, what am I doing next? Like you work so hard at something, like you want to just get better at it. You want to get better at it. Like, and every time I would go do a job, it's like, it's practice. You know what I mean? It's you being paid to do something, but it's practice, whether you're doing a mural, whether you're doing a canvas painting that somebody commissioned you to do, or whether you're doing an airbrush job, or whether I'm at a window or like a face painting on a job, it's still practice. Even though you're working, it's like you're just getting better and better at your craft. I'm like by far not the best window painter, but I feel like I've reached a level of like, all right, I've been doing this. Like I'm itching for something else. Like I want to get into like graffiti cans, like spray cans and like other things. But I started this maybe like almost 10 years ago. And then around COVID time, all my clients stopped doing their windows. Like nobody was doing anything. All my parties got canceled. So I wasn't doing face painting. I wasn't doing airbrush. The businesses were closing. They weren't putting money into the windows. So I was like, oh, what do I do? I'm trying so hard not to curse right now, by the way. So it was like, what do I do? So I'm like, I had to create something out of, what was going on. And I don't know if it was like this by you or other people, but like rainbows was like a big thing here, like rainbows of hope and people putting rainbows in their windows and all this stuff. So I was still painting actually for the very first preschool that I had started painting for. And they asked me to do a rainbow, and I put up a rainbow, and then I put it inside of this Facebook group that was like on Staten Island. Everybody was doing rainbows, and people started seeing it. And then I started going like door to door. I started doing houses at that time because there was no other work, and so that's how that all started. And I was doing houses for a while, and just that kept me busy through all of that. And I think from doing that, everybody started like really catching on. I was like, I've been doing this for years before this, though. Like, where have you guys been? And then it just kept snowballing from there. And it just, the window painting took off. But yeah, when someone's starting, I mean, I'm like, you can do anything you put your mind to, like really, like if you believe in yourself, you'll do anything, I don't know. I believe like everybody can do everything. It's just a matter of like, it's the amount of discipline that you have. Like people talk to me about like not having motivation. I'm like, yeah, motivation sucks. It's not always there. It's not something you can rely on. Like it's the discipline, it's the getting up every day, it's the pushing yourself, it's the wanting to be better than you were yesterday, you know?
Yep.
I'm just over here rambling. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I love all the motivational talk. I'm like, yes. And I think other people do too. You know, I hear so many comments about people listening to this podcast and they listen to the guests and they say, you know, before I plugged in, I really wasn't that motivated to do something. But after I listened to and I listened to people like you doing stuff and how it's hard for you too, and you went through all the things and you're giving some tips, and like after the episode, they feel like, okay, I want to go do this. So so you're doing exactly what somebody needs to hear right now.
Good, I'm
So
glad. And yeah, another thing I'll say is like, you know, there's a lot of artists out there, right? So, you know, a lot of people can do the same things, let's say, for example, but it also matters like who you are as an artist. Like a lot of the people that I work with, I believe that they enjoy working with me. I believe this, you know, whatever. We'll go with that. But like, it's like when you go to a store, if there's two bagel stores on the same street and you go into one and the owner is there and he's like, hey, good morning, you know, and he's super friendly, you're more inclined to go to that bagel store. Even if the prices are higher, you're still more inclined to go there because you like the atmosphere, you like the way you feel, you like the personal relationships. So even as an artist, I feel like that's important too. Like it's not just your art, but it's like who you are. And people gravitate to that. Even like collectors of art, like I'm sure they like the paintings in their house. I'm sure they also like the artists. So like that makes people stand out too, in my opinion anyway, you know, having a personality along with what you're doing. You don't have to, you know, but it helps. Things like that. I don't know, it makes people want to keep having you back in a way too. I also like to promote the businesses that I work for. I like to tag them. I like to promote them, especially if they're good to me too, you know? Like I'm a small business. We're all small businesses. So a lot of the window painting is that. It's like helping a small business to get attention on their storefront, to get people to notice them, to get people to come in, to get people to talk about them, you know? So I like to give that back too. Like when I post stuff, I like to say the job that I did, you know, most of the time. I feel like that goes a long way too.
so true. Yeah. And especially with Windows, you're doing it for so many businesses that you can tag them and they reshare. And I'm sure it's a great way to just get your name out there. Yeah. What lights you up nowadays? So say somebody wanted something painted, a window, a mural, something. What's something that you're like, I want that job? You'd be so excited to go to it. It's like, what's the one thing that you're asked to be painted that you're like, yeah.
This is such a loaded question because if I'm going to be completely honest, because you know people are going to listen to this, and I'm sure people can relate. I wasn't even that great this year, like mentally. Like I was like so turned off from window painting. I actually burnt myself out in the beginning of this year. I worked very, very, very hard. I was doing so good, and then I don't know, I got really burnt out, and I didn't want to look at a window for a very long time. And then like 4th of July season comes around. I love doing the Eagles. I do. I just love painting the Eagles. I love doing the American flags. I love doing Halloween stuff. I don't do a lot of it because it's a quick turnaround and people just probably don't want to pay for it because it's just that 1 month that it's over. But when I get to paint like a skeleton head or something like that, I love that. I like doing the Christmas stuff. I like doing the candy canes. I am excited to do fall. Fall's coming up. I like the color palette with fall and things like that. But if I'm being totally honest, you know, when you're doing windows, you're painting for a storefront and you're painting what they want. You're painting their products. You're painting things that have to do with their business. So like I try to put things in there that I love, that I want to paint. Like I'll try to take a job that maybe it's a business that I'm not really crazy about. Oh no, I got to go paint this. Like, you know, but I'll find a way to put like a character in there that I enjoy. Or like sometimes I'm painting a character and the character's smiling and I'll get like to the very end and like I'll start laughing at the window and I'm like, oh, this is so great. I love this. Like if it's making me smile and laugh, I'm like, it's got to make somebody happy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the happier stuff I like doing. You do like scenery and stuff like that too. Yeah, I stay away from that. Like I've heard people ask me to do that, and I'm like, I can't. Like it's not my thing. Could I do it? Probably. Yeah, I probably could, but I don't know. Like I like the fun, charactery stuff. I also like the creepy stuff. I wish I got more outrageous things. I wish I got like a client that wants the most outrageous thing on their windows, just to get people to go like, what the hell is that? You know, like what is that? Like why would they put that there? Just to get people to talk. Like that's, to me, that's the whole point of it, is like get people to notice your place for whatever reason it is.
That's such a good tip. So for anybody doing windows, maybe even mentioning that to customers, like you just said, if it's something you're not crazy about, putting something in there you like, but the most outrageous thing on there, like something random that would get people to look and be like, what? Oh, it's
Yeah.
interesting, because that's what you're wanting to do. And so I guess in pitching this holiday season, it's just that's the pitch. You're getting people to look at your business who otherwise maybe wouldn't, or you're catching the eye of people who are just walking by and having them notice something. So pitching them an idea and and mentioning with the customer, the crazier, more colorful, the more out there that we can make this, or the most beautiful thing that we could do is going to get the more attention. So, and usually those things cost a little bit more. So that would be a good segue into, explaining your pricing. Like, yes, we could do something simple and it's going to be super cute and this, or we could do something outrageous and make everybody look at this for a little bit more. And okay, you've got my business hat like spinning right now. That's such a good point. That's why we do this. That's why we do murals. That's why we do everything. It's just to make people look.
Yeah, listen, I tell people go big or go home. Like I don't, so there's a lot of great artists. There's a lot of great artists on social media that everybody has a different style, like it's interesting and we all like kind of feed off of each other. I see some people that do, detailed things, but they do very, small stuff with very tiny brushes. I'm like a big sloppy painter, like give me big brushes and rollers and like whatever. And I just want to smear it and like there's paint everywhere. And like, I like to paint fast. I don't know, but like the detail stuff, my work is detailed. I believe that it is, but I don't like to paint small. I like to paint like where it's more in your face. Like the bigger I can make a character, that means it's seen from down the street. You know what I mean? Like it's seen from a greater distance. And for a business, I feel like that's way more beneficial to them. This is just my opinion. Take it or leave it. But I like it. I tell them, I'm like, go big or go home. Like that's the whole point of putting something on the window is like really like to get it to be seen, as big as you can. I love people who have big windows. I love big windows with no separations in them. Like, if you got, yeah, like, oh God, one of my least favorite things is like having to paint a window that has, that's like, it's one window, but it's really 9 small windows. And I got to figure out how to fit a face in here somewhere without putting a bar right down the middle of a character's face. There's a lot more that goes into it than the average person thinks about when they hire you, or that, when they think about the cost of it, they don't understand how much is factored in, I love what I do. And I'm also like, oh man, I'm ready for something new. I don't know.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I am dabbling in illustrating a children's book right now just because I need something new, So
Yeah.
what is your new thing? What's like, so we've talked a lot about windows, but what is the new, or like, do you have anything that you're dabbling or want to get into?
So I'll tell you that last year, I've always wanted to like really get into wood cuts. And last year, like on the front lawn, or even like hanging them in the house on walls or whatever. And I used to take a lot of face paint clients through October. I'd have people come to my house. I would make appointments. I would paint the same kids each year. And like as the past couple of years have gone on, I just I like slowly stopped doing it. And then last year, I said I'm not taking anybody. I was like, I'm not taking anybody for the month of October. I don't care. I'm done. Sorry. And I was like, I'm going to work on something for myself for a change. And I painted this 8-foot tall. I cut it. It's a piece of wood, plywood, whatever. I cut it. It was 8 foot tall. And I spent like a little bit of time each day or once a week or whatever it was, painting this huge head that I put on my front lawn. I got it up just in time by the end of the month for for Halloween. And it's so obnoxious. And it's the Terrifier. If anybody knows that movie, the guy who made the movie is from Staten Island, and they're coming out with the third one this year. But it's the Terrifier head. It's the killer clown. And I mean, just watching people stop in front of the house as they drive by, and like there'll be an adult in the front seat, and there's a kid in the back seat, and you can see the adult pointing and like, oh my God, going like that. And it's like fun and exciting. And I just want to do more of that. I want to do more of the wood cuts. If you think back to like the stork signs, like when we were kids, like, how outdated a lot of those look, like the original stork signs. And like, I want to like, I don't know, maybe I want to do baby announcements, but like make them more present and current to the way that we are now and a little more outrageous. And I don't know. Something with the wood. I do want to do graffiti. I probably want to do murals. I just don't want to paint what other people want. That's my dilemma. I want to do murals that I want to do. So I'm all over the place. I don't know if that's helping anybody, but I feel like you can do anything and make money doing it. You know what I mean? As long as you're passionate about it and you want to do it, the people will find you. You'll find your people as long as you're passionate about whatever it is that you're doing. And you put the time and the work to do it.
Yeah, I think you're just like me and all of us listening they're like, where I feel like I'm everywhere too. I'm like, I want this and that. No,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
okay. One last question. What is your pricing like? Cause I know that we want to paint and we want to try all this fun stuff, but there's always like, okay, like you're paying me, I'll paint that. Sure. Like how much is enough for you to go out and like, how do you charge per window or per job? What's an average cost of a window painting that you do? Like general idea.
I love the way you said that. You're like, how much does it cost for you to go out? Because that's really like the underlying question right now. Is like, how much is it for me to leave my house? So in the beginning, when I was first starting, when I did the windows, like when I was doing just the preschool, I had just the front door. It was like $100 every time I went there in the beginning. It was like, all right, $100 and there for a couple of hours. It probably took me a lot longer to paint the window back then than it does now. Now I go out. The minimum is like 450. I have some people that I go out for 350 still because I've been working with them for so long, and that's fine. And they change it regularly. So, and I love working with them. For me, it's there, and then it goes up. I have like the minimum that I go out for. I have like a day rate in my mind. I also have like this is going to sound terrible, but it's like, how difficult is this client? Am I painting something I want to be painting? Am I going to get any sun on this job, or am I going to be freezing in the middle of January? Like, how far do I have to travel for this job? Are they ever going to call me again? Is this a one and done? Like, I probably have like the minimum. I have probably a day rate in my mind. And then I have a rate that's a little bit more. That's like, if they're only going to call me one time and I know they're leaving it up, then, to me, it's a longer term investment. We're not going to be working together. So I might charge a little bit more. I don't know. It varies. And then you have corporate clients. Obviously, corporate clients are going to have a bigger budget than, the small mom and pops. But I feel like when you truly love working with a client, you want to help them. You want to make it fair for both of you. You want to be paid accordingly for your time and all the energy and the effort that you're going to put into this job. And it's not just what's on site. There's a lot of behind the scenes. There's a lot of figuring it out. There's a lot of communication back and forth. For anybody who's new that's going to get into this, like me personally, I don't do mock-ups. I don't do that. It's a window. To me, I'm like, if you don't like it down the road, you're going to take it down anyway. It's not permanent.
Yeah.
I will discuss with people. If I have some clients they're like, hey, just come and change the window. Okay, cool. I'll be there, and it's done. There's no more communication that takes place. These are people I work with regularly, so they trust me. There's some new people like, oh, can you draw something for me? And I'm like, no, sorry. No, it's just always an immediate no. I'm like, no. If I was doing a mural, yes, absolutely. I would do that whole communication process and I would show them something and I would spend that time. I do spend time behind the scenes doing windows, but for me personally, I don't do mock-ups. I'm also not like the greatest sketch artist. And a lot of times, like I'm using like 5 reference photos and trying to put something together. And then I'm on the job and I'm like changing it or I'm doing something. And sometimes I'm on the job and I'm like, ooh, and I get like excited. I'm like, oh, let me try this. And I don't know. And then that becomes a thing that I do. But
that is the fun thing about windows. They're not permanent. And I feel like, yeah, you do get a bit more like my window painting customers that I've had. They're more like, just, we want snowflakes, but like do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, you get to do whatever you want.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Usually I do the things that I know it's going to be really fast, like big trees or something. I'm like, then some I'm like, okay, maybe I'll spend some time on some like Christmas ornaments or whatever.
It depends on the day too. It's like some days I go out and I'm like, oh God, I'm not feeling this, and like I can see it in my work. Other people can't see it. Like I'll come home, I show my kids. They're like, what are you talking about? They're like, this is great. I'm like, no, I wasn't feeling it, But then other days I'm like, I'm really into what I'm doing and I might be spending extra time, I give everybody what they pay for and more. But as an artist, like we're our own worst critics, we're always the hardest on ourselves. So it's so rare that you leave a job and you're like 100% happy with everything that you did, Because like you'd be there all day. You'd be there for 3 days. You know what I mean?
Yep. I have some jobs popping in my head right now. I'm like, that I just did last week that I was like, I just left and I'm like, okay, I'm not spending more time on this. My husband's like, it looks great. I'm like, but does it, I don't know.
That's the thing I do love about windows. And I've said that before is like, if I don't like something, I know I can change it in a couple of months. I just won't drive down that block for a couple of months. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's totally fine. Like, I'll say this to people and they'll be like, that's great. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to look at it. Like, I don't want to see it. But that's just me personally, as like, we're our own worst critics.
Thank you so much for coming on and just chatting.
Thank you for having me.
So I was planning on coming on and doing like a solo episode about Windows. And I was just thinking, I was like, you've just shared all the things that I would have said. So you just have done my job for me. So this is very informative is what I'm saying. And it's cool to hear that we do things very similarly. And I think you're going to motivate a lot of people to do windows, which is really what we want. That's why I wanted to have you specifically on here, because your art is amazing. So everybody check out the link that we have in the show notes. And so it's Paint by Mish?
Yeah, Paint by Mish, M-I-S-H. It's like Instagram, Facebook, and I tried to open I was gonna say Twitter, it's not Twitter, TikTok. I'm like, I don't know anything else. I tried to do a TikTok this year. I probably put 2 things up there and that was it. I don't know. I'm a little bad with that. But yeah, Paint by Mish. Yeah, and if anybody needs help with anything, let me know. I try to answer the comments in the videos. I try to help. I try to answer questions. I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything like that. But like Scott was nice enough when I first wanted to get into this. I found him on YouTube. That's another thing. Like anybody who's listening, whatever you want to do, even if it's not Windows, like anything that you want to do, go on YouTube. Somebody made a video about it. It's just there. It's waiting for you, or contact someone. And I'm sure people offer services where they're willing to help, like the information is out there, especially in this day and age.
Yep. You are carrying on Scott's legacy. He's retired now, right? He's not doing many.
Yeah, but he still paints. We check in every couple of months. I probably should reach out. We haven't spoken in a little bit, but it's always like this goal of like, I want to go out there one day and see him. He wants to come to New York. It's like, we got to make this happen one of these days.
Yeah. He's so cool. He would be so fun to meet in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come chat with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. If you like this art and business talk in audio form, then I want to invite you to get my book. It's called Mural Money: How to Grow Your Art Business from 0 to 6 figures. So starting from the very bottom, like you don't even have a website yet. You have nothing. You're not sure where to go, and you want to make money with a paintbrush. You want to have your creativity pay the bills. I have taken so much of the advice that I've gotten from artists from this podcast. I've been doing one episode for over 5 years now. So many interviews, so many good bits of advice. So I've taken the best of that advice and put it in my book, along with so many stories and lessons learned that I've had in my own mural career of just how I would go back and save a whole lot of time if I just knew these steps. This is a 15-hour audiobook. And so if you like this podcast, if you're listening to interview after interview, I know that you're going to like the book. So go to muralmoney.com. It's for anybody who wants to grow their art business with a paintbrush. Muralmoney.com. And I will see you next week for another episode of the Artist Academy podcast.